If senior leadership doesn't participate in a program, that kind of tells you something.
You get resistance at different levels from people that might not think of things in kind of the newer way that's available.
Take the best widget maker who is really good at making a sale. That doesn't mean that they're automatically going to be effective managers. You've got to train them.
You can't just promote people and hope, because Bob was a great tire maker and you got him managing 20 other tire makers now, but he has no idea how to manage people. That's a big risk to drop somebody into.
And today's skills, they're so fleeting in the sense that we're looking for these new skills that didn't even exist, years ago.
If we talk about retention, companies don't really understand how expensive it is until somebody knows how to just put like a really basic equation to it. Let's take everybody that you fired, that you laid off, or that quit last year. Take that times all of their salaries for last year. That is your turnover cost for last year. And then once they see how many millions of dollars that is, they go, oh crap.
My very special guest is the Chief Human Resources Officer for InZone Insurance. He's also the author of the new book, The Employee Retention Bible. He is Matt Rieck. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Matt, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy the podcast, and I'm looking forward to being on.
I can't wait. I can't wait to chat all about this book, The Employee Retention Bible. I had a chance to read it. Really love your writing style. So conversational, like we were just having a chat. But my first question for you, Matt, what inspired you to write it? What were you seeing out there that was like, I need to write this book?
It's funny. I was a consultant for like 5 or 6 years, Matt, and I helped a lot of small business owners. And one thing I figured out is that so many of them had the same issues over and over again. And one issue that nobody seems to be able to fix right now is how to keep their employees beyond like 3 to 4 years, especially if they're high performers. They roll out very quickly from company to company because it's just tough to keep people when they can jump and make more money somewhere else unless you have a really good program in place to do that.
Yeah. And you also talk about how a lot of times, even if they've decided that they want to start looking, but then they kind of hang out and they're underperforming for, I think you wrote like 6 to 12 months in some cases, especially in a job market like this. So I think that when you're not doing these retention practices, even if people aren't leaving in droves, but they might have checked out on you.
Yeah, it's tough because if you look at it, like when I did my research for this book, Matt, if you go to bls.gov, they'll tell you that it's like 12 to 18 months of an employee's annual salary, to replace them. And I'm like, it can't be that much. So I'm like, okay, let me look at this objectively and figure out. So I was like, well, first of all, how many of us have worked at a place and you have somebody that's like basically like a nice house plant? They just sit there. They don't really do anything. They don't really care. They just kind of clock in, clock out, and just kind of punch in their card. And they're not taking great care of your clients, and they're just kind of doing the bare minimum. A lot of us have seen those people just linger around companies for years. So it's like, that's a cost. Okay, then if you just want to replace somebody, like if somebody leaves and they leave without any problems, which, problems can cost you money too. But if they leave on their own, then you've got to take into account that they talk to other people about that leaving for probably at least 6 months beforehand. So you have some other people kind of thinking about that now, or that's out in your culture. Then you have the fact that you've got to write a job ad. You've got to post a job ad. I've got to pay for every job ad I post. I think as of this morning, my company's got 81 open roles. So each one of those has to be paid for LinkedIn and Indeed to host those, right? Then you're going to go, okay, then you've got to have somebody sort through those. And right now, I know this is a crazy number to think of, but for each open job we got per week, Matt, we get 60 to 110 applicants. So that's nuts when you think of what it takes somebody to look through that and try to find like 5 people to get it down to 1 to hire, right? Then you've got to interview all these people. You got to pay for the background checks. You got to onboard them. Then you've got a person that's in there for 3 to 6 months training that doesn't really know what they're doing yet, right? And we all know, and anybody that's ever hired anybody before has their ego deflated by the fact that some people are amazing at interviews and you show up and you're like, who are you, dude? Because this is not what you represented at all when I did all those interviews with you. And some other people, you're like, I just need a body. Like, I got to have somebody do this work. So you hire like the best person that you can find. And they're like, oh, that lady worked out great. Like, she's terrific. So there's nobody in the world that's got this down to like a perfect science. Don't let anybody make you believe otherwise. So you get the person. Once you consider all of that, Matt, you go, oh yeah, it's like a year's salary to replace somebody, and probably more if they're like really good at their job, or if they're a high performer, they got really good relationships with your customers, your clients.
You bring such a great point too. And you talk to the average hiring manager, how often do they make those hires? Hopefully not all that often if they've got high performers. And the risk of them getting it wrong and saying like, well, this person's, not just like me, so I'm not going to necessarily hire this person. You're like, yeah, but the job you're asking them to do is totally different from who you are. So I think it invites risk if we do it badly too.
It's one of the hardest things to make, especially new managers understand, Matt, is that you can't hire people just because you like them or they are like you, or you're going to get a bunch of groupthink. And then the things, because every single person, like I'm old, all the hair that I have is white, what little is left. So like every single person on your team is not going to be good at the same stuff. And so if you I love training and development. I love being in front of people. I'm really great at company culture stuff. But like, if you want to rely on me to do your payroll alone, like nobody's going to get paid right. So I hire people that are analytical to do that job, that are good at it. And that's how I'm able to be successful. But you can't just do that. And then the other thing that happens too is the longer you go with people, hiring people off of what our generation hired people off of education and experience. I don't do that anymore, Matt. I've been burned too many times by that to do it, meaning that I've hired people because, okay, this lady's like really good. Like she's got like 6 years of experience. I think she'd be great. But Bob, and that guy's been in this industry for like 15 years. And I think he has so much experience. We got to hire him. And then you get Bob in, and Bob's beliefs are so entrenched in 15 years of doing things one way and thinking every other way is wrong that he can't learn anything new and he can't do anything new. So now I don't hire on education experience anymore. I hire on attitude to be able to like jump in, learn new things, like just want to work with a team and just be a really easy person to get along with. And then skills second. And then farther down is education and experience.
It's really nice. And I think that, when we talk about behavioral fit all the time, making sure somebody's well suited to what we're going to be asking them to do. And today's skills, they're so, what's the opposite of durable? They're so fleeting in the sense that we're looking for these new skills that didn't even exist, years ago, and certainly in a lot of our technical roles. But when it comes to hiring people who are a great fit for the job, they can learn the skills if they've got that attitude, like you talked about, as opposed to just being hamstrung by saying, well, I just can't find somebody who's got the experience. Well, you might be running yesterday's playbook.
Yeah. And it's funny too, like if we talk about retention, Matt, companies don't really understand how expensive it is until somebody knows how to just put like a really basic equation to it. So if you go, hey guys, let's take everybody that you fired, that you laid off, or that quit last year. How many people is that? You'll ask a company, they'll be like 32 or whatever the number is. And you'd be like, okay, so take that times all of their salaries for last year. That is your turnover cost for last year. And then once they see how many millions of dollars that is, they go, oh crap. Like this is something that we have to pay attention. Or if they're paired with like a consultant or a PE company that like looks at the retention and knows what that costs because they've done this over and over, then it gets some really big attention. But when it gets the attention, then the weird thing is companies don't know how to fix that because they've never had to do it before. They don't have anything in place to do it. The steps are easy, but it takes a regimented plan to do it.
I think sometimes we hear turnover and we think it's already a pejorative, whether it's somebody quit on us or whether we had to make a move on them. But you're right, the turnover is just a normal progressive discipline, and this process should never stop, which makes it seem like a more natural part of business. But my question for you, Matt, is what is it that prevents team leaders from employers just having that mindset that turnover, as expensive as it is, sometimes it's necessary on either side of the equation, and looking at just a normal part of business?
Well, you have to remember that the average everyday manager, team lead, like base level manager in your organization, or even mid-level manager, there's no ouch there, Matt. There's no hurt to them to get rid of Bob. So, it's until somebody's like in a sales role and they're responsible for a team and the numbers underneath it or whatever it is, that they can actually feel that, or the C-suite or, the presidents and VPs can feel it because they see the numbers that causes. Now, turnover is natural. You're always going to have, when you look at a company, like you're going to have your A players, like your top 20% of people that you want to do everything you can to keep. You're going to have your B players that are your like core backbone of your folks that show up every day, work hard, punch their clock, go home to their families, that are great people that you absolutely need. And you got your C players, your bottom 20% of people. And that bottom 20% of people is either in the wrong job, the wrong company, it's just not the right fit for them, or they're having some other issues in their life that are affecting their work. And they've got to be coached out or coached at least back up to to be players. So there's no big thing that a regular manager has to do to try to fix this. So if your people are underperforming, then you should just always be having the conversations that like, hey, Matt, these are our metrics. These are our KPIs every week. Here's how we're tracking. And you can always talk to them about like, here's the things that you're doing great, but here's the things that are just, they don't fit right now and are not working out. And if you're always kind of having those ongoing conversations with people, it's not a big surprise if you have to sit down and be like, hey, man, I'm really sorry that I've got to give you a verbal warning today or a written warning today, because it's just, you're not able to progress where we need you to. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about this. Where it's hard for people is when it's a surprise, when they're like, I've not only been doing this because you have this distance between that. People are like, I've not only been doing my job, I've been picking up other duties for people. And you're thinking I'm not doing enough. Like I'm doing two people's jobs since Sally quit or whatever it happens to be. And when that conversation happens out of the blue, that's where you have trouble for companies.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of transparency, a lot of authenticity, a lot of, frank talk, but it happens in both directions too. And I
It
think
does.
sometimes, when you think about if an employee comes and says, I'm a reasonable performer, but I think I want to try something different in my career. I see this a lot with early career people that are, not really sure what all's out there and they're trying to figure out like what's the best fit for me any more than sometimes we say, it's not working out for you in this role, but we
Yep.
we still like your attitude. We still like your skills. We think that you'd be a better fit over here. I've seen those work out real well sometimes. So it's a
Yes.
different kind of turnover when it's like we had to, either somebody wanted to move or we moved them. And hopefully it goes from that C to B, to A contribution that you talked about earlier. It can happen.
It's the wrong seat on the bus type of thing sometimes. And when you have a person in that, you have to have, like I said, it's harder for first time managers or younger managers that just haven't managed a lot of people before and have more reps. But what happens is you're so tunnel visioned on your team and your goals and making your manager above you happy when you're in that type of a role. And I was there myself early in my career, that you don't go like, you know what, they'd really work good on Doug's team because that's more of a service oriented team than a sales oriented team or whatever it happens to be. And then you go like, just that seat on the bus might fit better. So you have a talk with them about that, because believe me, nobody wants to be in 2025 in the job market that we have right now. Nobody wants to be unemployed without another job prospect. So it's okay to let them try something else and give them an opportunity to do that.
That makes good sense. And well, let's keep on this kind of frame of trying to keep our people. You've got your book all about retention. And I got to tell you, I talk to a lot of people, a lot of different companies, a lot of different industries, and it just surprises me how many times they say that their company either doesn't have a company meeting or they may have a terrible one. And you write about this as one of your chapters in the book. And I'm a question for you, Matt. What makes this a missed opportunity if we're not having these types of company town hall, all staff meetings from the employer's perspective? What are we missing out on if we don't do it right?
Okay. So first of all, like, if you don't show your employees appreciation, if your attitude as an employer, and there's tons of, really bad news articles out there right now about employers not showing appreciation, especially even chiefs, the memos that get leaked and all this kind of stuff, but it's that makes companies look terrible. But if you simply look at it like this, an employee meeting done once a quarter. So an all company quarterly meeting on Zoom, Teams, whatever, Google Meet, whatever technology your company uses. And you just have everybody hop on there for 1 hour once a quarter. And if you don't have an hour once a quarter to be able to invest in making your people feel valued and letting them know what's going on in the company, like I can't help you at that point. So an hour once a quarter, you're going to invite everybody in the company and you're going to get all the chiefs on there. And you just say, hey, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to go, we're going to do some employee appreciation. We're going to tell you how the company did this last quarter, tell you what's going on with the company. And then the chief at the end is going to do something very simple. He's just going to go, this is where we're at. This is where we are going, and this is how we are going to get there together. So let's just structure this real easy for somebody that's never done this before. Let's say you're the CEO and you listen to this and you go, man, all company quarterly meeting, how do I do that? So you have somebody get on, open the meeting, tell everybody what it's about. Then maybe they say, so we've got a past quarter's result, right? So they go, hey, here's our employee of the month for the last 3 months and why they were selected. Or if you want to call it something different, you can, if that sounds too cheesy to your company. And then you go, this is why they were selected. Well, what are you doing when you do that? Well, what you're doing is, number one, is you're giving employee appreciation. You're lifting them up to their peers, showing people that you acknowledge and appreciate them, but you're also creating groupthink because you're like, this is why Matt was selected because he has these behaviors at work that we value as a company. Now everybody gets that rip of, oh, okay, this is what the company values. So you do that, and then you go, here's how the people spent their charitable time off, or here's what people are doing in their local communities at these sites in our organization. Then maybe have the sales guy get on and go, here's how the numbers were for last quarter. Here's how we exceeded. Here's where we fell short. This is kind of how we're doing collectively. Then maybe you have one of the guys come on, another leader, a chief, a VP, whatever you want to do. And you say, this is, something to do with the new technology we're working on, or these are our new products that we're offering next quarter. And at some point in there, you don't want it just to be leadership. So maybe you've got a guy that's been a manager for you 10 years and made it from a team lead to a mid-level manager. And he's got a good story about how he came up at your company and how he was able to advance. So you have him come on and do 5 minutes and talk a little bit about that. So you're showing people along the way how they can grow. And then the chief at the end is just going to spend the majority of that time, 20 to 30 minutes, talking about whatever he needs to do at the company to show some direction. And you can do this with a basic PowerPoint deck in the background or no deck and just have people talk. But spending that time and, having little emojis when people clap, when you give recognition and all this type of stuff. And by the way, every single company has a sales leader every quarter or a service leader every quarter, every month. So you do those acknowledgments too, and you talk about who's killing it. You bring up who had promotions, who had births, who had, whatever it happens to be. Tom has 10 years at our company, this last quarter. All of those things could be packaged easily within 45 minutes to an hour. And now you've got the message to the whole company as to what's happening, and you've got some togetherness. Now you can drive that down level all the way through the organization, Matt. Then maybe you have a territory meeting where they do things more that are for their territories once a quarter. That's also half hour, 20 minutes, whatever it happens to be, with the VP of that territory or however you're structured. Then you go all the way down to the base level team lead and you go, hey guys, wouldn't it be great if every team lead in our company, and let's say you have 20 or 30 team leads of all the divisions, has a weekly team meeting? We've got people that are in the office now, hybrid, fully remote. So you have people jump on and go, hey, okay, how was your weekend, Matt? Talks a little bit about your weekend. You go, what did you have last week? He talks through it. What did you have this week to go on? Oh, I've got to do this. I've got to get with Sally to help me with this marketing do. And you're done. And it's 5 minutes for each person. You probably got 10, 12 people on each team max, right? So it's a half an hour once a week to gel your whole team.
I want to pick up on something else, which is that, we're on this topic of retention. And I know that these common practices that take place inside of organizations around, we need to have performance reviews for our employees. Obviously, we're going to have compensation adjustments from time to time. And also, you bring up this related concept also of succession planning. And so my question for you, Matt, is how do these things all relate to one another? Do they all happen all at the same time? Or they all kind of should be handled separately? I've seen different schools of thought on how to approach performance reviews, compensation, and succession.
I view the performance review and the compensation review separate from succession planning. It can be part of a greater conversation, but what we're doing is that's the employee facing time. And in that, especially if you have an A player or a good performing B player that you know that you're going to be able to advance at some point, then that's a good discussion to include in their review. And the reason that you do succession planning as a company, as management every year before you do employment reviews is to figure out where people are at. And I've been through so many different succession planning exercises that are very complicated, Matt, and it doesn't need to be. The best one I've ever stolen from somebody smarter than me is 4 points, and it's very simple. You simply go, this is the person's name and title. This is the person on the team that is best equipped to take over if they left today, got hit by a bus, God forbid, whatever happened, that would be able to step into their role. That person that would step into the role, how long would they need to be ready? If Matt was a marketing manager, how long would Tom need to be able to take over Matt's job? And you go, I think I could have Tom ready in 6 months to a year. And then the last question, and the most important one, is what skills would Tom need to take over Matt's job? And the reason that that's the most important one is because that's what becomes your training plan for the next 6 months to a year for Tom. So then you do that first. And now as a company, all through the organization, doesn't matter how big you are, every single person that is a manager on up has a name that's below theirs and a training plan below them to advance that person. Now, things change. Things are organic. Companies move all the time. People come, people go. But this can be an ongoing, evolving thing that you simply update quarterly. It's not difficult to do. It's not even time consuming to do. But every company should have a succession plan just with those 4 points put in place for every manager, from the chiefs all the way down to the base level team lead. Then when you go do performance reviews, let's say the next month, you sit there and you go, hey, Tom, we have identified a path that if there becomes an opportunity to help you become a marketing manager at some point, these are the skills that we would need to train and develop you on to be really successful at that role. Maybe you're great at marketing, but you've never managed people. So you want to suggest some basic marketing books or a course or something like that to them, or you want to do some mentoring, a monthly session where you spend an hour with them up in front of the whiteboard talking through some management concepts that you've learned in your career that you can pass down to Tom. Those types of very simple plans put in place are what make A players stay because they feel invested in and they're not going to go anywhere. Because this is the way that it works for an A player, those top 20% of people in your company. Because they're talented, the first year they're going to master the job. By the end of the second year, they've already got it down. They're showing everybody else how to do it. By the end of the third year, they're already bored and looking around. And if you can keep them to the end of the fourth year, they're already in the dust. So you have to have a path for them, or you have to have your comp near the top of the band for what other people are playing for that same role, or they're going to be gone. And so that's where companies don't have that in place and they completely miss out.
It makes such good sense. And I think you're giving us such great blueprints on everything from how to run meetings to how to run these kind of annual cycles. And then the want to has to be there. So as employers, we just have to follow your great advice and be sure to put these things in place as retention strategies, just as you point out, which is pretty awesome. But I want to also intertwine some of your ABC comments that you've been having in the way that you kind of look at these different players, as well as another concept I was fascinated by. I hadn't heard it before, of the 3X concept. Really talk about putting strain on a system, for example. Can you tell us how the 3X concept works and how it relates to these ABC players?
Yeah, and some companies have done 3X or 5X or 10X as an exercise. And what you're doing with this exercise is you're sitting down, and it relates to ABC players, is you're saying, hey, if my company would grow to 3 times the size by the end of this year, what would break? What don't we have in place? What would we need? What would that look like? Maybe your current payroll system can't facilitate that, or your HR system. Maybe your current sales system or marketing funnels don't have enough. Maybe like you can't get enough leads, that type of a thing to get there. So if you wanted to get your business from, let's say that you're $100,000 of revenue right now, you would be $300,000 of revenue by the end of the year. What would you have to do to get there? And then you're like, oh man, I'd really need to have this VP of sales, or I'd really need to have this technology in place, or we don't have any way to get any more leads into the funnel. Whatever it happens to be, that concept has to be driven up. But now that concept also has to apply to people, and what you will teach people and what you need to think about when people hire other people is they'll go, oh, we really need a great marketing manager to be able to lead this campaign that we're going to do, or because we're expanding, our team is getting too big. And then they go, and we have to have that marketing manager now for our 250 person company. No, you need the marketing manager that can do it when you're 3 times the size. So yes, it's going to cost you more now, but if you hire the person that can only do the marketing manager job at 250 people, they don't even know how to get you up to the 750 or 1,000 people company. So that's who you have to grab. So you have to grab a higher player in the talent market, and you have to develop them and the team along with them. And then the other thing that happens too, Matt, is let's say you've got your top people in a company right now, and you've got a 1,000-person company, and you've got your A players. But would they be an A player if they were a 3,000-person company anymore? And for most of them, they wouldn't. It's not because their habits are different, not because they're any kind of different people that show up to work every day and do their best for you, but they don't have the skills to be able to function as an A player at that type size of company because they haven't done it before. They don't even know how to get there. So they can kind of titrate up all the time and kind of work their way up little by little. But there's other people that know immediately how to go up there because they've done it before. You want to hire the guy that's already done it before. And that's what happens with companies, is you get this kind of just slow evolutionary growth a lot of the time, unless they make the investment in somebody that can really skip. And when you put that person in place, it can be jarring to the culture of everybody else that is used to you being at this speed. And all of a sudden you're at 3x speed for how you're going to get there. And when you train and develop your teams, you have to teach them that concept, because you're like, you might be great right now, or you're, $10,000 of sales a month you're doing right now. But if you wanted to go to $30,000 of sales a month, what would you need to do? And by introducing that form of thinking both to the C-suite and to your base level of management, they will start to think, oh, what would that look like? Now, at InZone, I'll tell you, we are an acquisition-based company. We buy over 50 small agencies a year. So you might have a VP in a territory, Matt, that had 30 people in it. And then by the end of the next year, they might have 100 people in that territory because we bought a bunch of agencies there. That's a completely different life now for that manager than was there before. So we do everything we can to train and develop them along the way. And that's also a good lead into companies have to invest in training and developing their managers, not just their base level people. But most companies are like, Bob's going to be fine. He's great at his job. Make him a manager. And then they just leave him out there like hanging on the vine. No, you have to train him how to be successful in the job and in the future at the job. That's how you really grow.
It's amazing. And you refer to it in your book as well. You talk about, you take the best widget maker who was really good at the whether it was making a sale or whether it was doing whatever, but then that doesn't mean that they're automatically going to be effective managers. You've got to train them when it comes to that. Like what are some on your short list of things that we really need to train into managers? Because it doesn't just come with the promotion.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So when I came in 2 years ago at InZone, we put in the all company meetings, which we love to do, and we constantly get feedback and adjust them. And one other thing we did is I said, okay, so I'm a training and development guy. I've always been. So I said, every single manager in an organization, if you want to do a short list, let's just go down and say they need to be trained on communication, conflict resolution, how to create winning teams, relationship management, coaching, change management. Just take those 6 topics, do a PowerPoint deck for each of them, or you can go to my website, mattrieck.com, and download them for free and put your company logos on them and do them. I've been doing them for years now. And you take those and you do 6 classes, 1 hour each a month for 6 months for your whole management team, from VPs all the way down to your base team leads. Now you have everybody tracking with the basic concepts of how to treat people, how to manage people, how to motivate people, how to get rid of people, like how to drive sales and service, all of those things. But if you don't have some type of management program in place, that's never going to go anywhere. You can't just promote people and hope, because Bob was a great tire maker and you got him managing 20 other tire makers now, but he has no idea how to manage people. And that's a big risk to drop somebody into.
Yeah, especially if, you want to have the kind of growth you were talking about earlier too. It's just not going to happen if we don't have the leadership capacity in the organization. And I like the idea of ensuring that everybody's going through it together too, because a lot of times we're like, if senior leadership doesn't participate in a program, that kind of tells you something. It's like, we already know this stuff. We don't, and I think that it's a real missed opportunity the way that you're describing it like that.
Yeah, and I think that companies, Matt, like you get resistance at different levels from people that might not think of things in kind of the newer way that's available. Let me give you an example. So let's say that you're like, okay, so how do we do employee appreciation? And I get this question all the time, like, from HR leaders, because I'm on like 3 different, CHRO groups, and we talk about concepts, and they'll go, well, I don't really have any more budget for employee appreciation. What do you do, Matt? And I go, I'll give you a completely free program that you can do right now. Call your marketing manager in, and you're going to have a meeting, and this is what you're going to say. You're going to say, every single month we have an employee of the month, right? Every single month we have a sales leader, a service leader. We have people's birthdays. We have people's work anniversaries. We have people's promotions. We have new hires. We have retirements. Take all of that, just that, and you go, we're going to make an internal email every time that happens with their picture, with their permission, and 2 little paragraphs about why Matt was great. He got promoted to marketing manager. And then you're also going to put it on the company's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, And you're going to do all that. And you're just going to do that every single time somebody gets promoted, hired, has an employee of the month, is the sales leader that month, is a service leader that month. You can go down and write a list of 20 different things. And if you just do that and put them out on your free company social media and internally in email, what happens? Now you have a constant feed of your employees being appreciated. Recruitment is now easy for your company because you're always showing what a great employer you are by talking your own people up. Retention is easier because people feel appreciated and acknowledged and seen. And also, this is completely free marketing and branding for your company. Your company name is constantly being pushed out there in a free capacity that anybody with social media can do in about 5 minutes a day. Now, like that's in place at InZone. That's also in place at other big companies. Like look at Richard Branson's company, Virgin. Look at Gary Vee's company, VaynerMedia. All this stuff is a constant drip of free marketing and free branding for the company that goes out that values employees. And I'm like, there, take that whole program and run. I even got it a PDF. I'll send it to them and they'll do it. And they'll be like, this is amazing. And the company's social media will blow up. And all of a sudden there's a lot of good employee interaction and people are staying, and it works really well. And it's completely free and easy.
There's so many, I should say, there's so few things in life that are fast and free like that.
Yes.
That have that sort of that ripple effect of the social as well as just the goodwill that generates within your company. So no excuse not to do those things.
Yeah, and you still got generational differences. Though people be like, social media, what are you gonna do with that? They won't understand the value there of what that does, but it hits it. Like I said, it's retention, it's recruitment, it's marketing, it's branding, it's employee appreciation, all of it. Easy.
Right. I love it. Well, I got another thing that's fast and free for us. It's a fast and free trivia question. You and I are going to
Bring it on.
game. I call this one, Are We Smarter Than AI? We're going to have one of these AI
I can tell you right now that I'm not.
Well, I think I'm going to remove all doubt alongside you. So I saw in your background that at one time you had worked at NASA, which is pretty exciting. So
Yeah.
we're going to get a trivia question about NASA, and we'll probably get it wrong, but it's going to be multiple choice, which will improve our odds somewhat. But here's the question, Matt. You and I are a team. We're going to try to answer this one. Which of the following was NASA's first crewed mission to land on the moon? Was it Apollo 8, Apollo 11, or Gemini 4?
Oof. Well, I'm trying to think with not to bring up bad stuff, but stuff that hasn't been successful missions. So is it Apollo 8?
You want to go Apollo 8? Let's try that one. So audience, if you're playing along at home, you can lock in your answer. Is it Apollo 8, Apollo 11, or Gemini 4? We're going to go with Apollo 8. And the answer, unfortunately, that's not the correct answer. It was Apollo 11. We're on the right track.
11's the one, the famous one where they actually make it, right?
I guess that was the one. That was the one
Okay.
that did it. Well, I have a much better and much more successful question for you, Matt, which is where can my listeners go to learn more about you?
Sure. I've got a website with my name, mattrieck.com. You can steal the goofy spelling of the last name out of there to get it right. You can also find me on LinkedIn and all social channels everywhere. And on the insurance website where I work over at InZone, if you need to contact me for work purposes. And I just want to say I really appreciate being able to talk to you casually about this stuff. There's so many things, Matt, that companies can put in place that aren't even cost prohibitive to show the employees that they appreciate you. It makes such a huge difference in how people feel at work and having a good culture. And a company just has to put a plan in place and do it.
Well, you wrote a great book. You're a great follow on social too, Matt. I've had just enjoyed so much having you on. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Matt. I appreciate it.